Hello and welcome back to Typical City. Lucas Paqueta. The rumours will not go away. It wasn't that long ago that I was talking about Lucas Paqueta, about a month ago, with the reports coming out that City are in for him in January, all depending on these betting allegations. And once again, these rumours have resurfaced with numerous sources suggesting that City has still very much got their eye on this Brazilian superstar, Lucas Paqueta, and potentially could go in for him in January, all depending on these betting allegations that he's being faced with, which is something I'm going to get onto shortly. But the interesting comparison, and one of the main themes running through all of these sources and all of these reports and suggestions about City going in for Lucas Paqueta, is that he is Kevin De Bruyne's replacement, which I don't see that to be the case, really, because I do see two very different type of players. I think there's so much more versatility to Lucas Paqueta's game than there is to Kevin De Bruyne's game. Kevin De Bruyne is very much an out-and-out, either number 8 or a number 10, and drifting in and out of central to attacking midfield, whereas Lucas Paqueta can do pretty much the whole full spectrum of what you want from a midfielder. Kevin De Bruyne is not shy of a tackle or anything like that, but Lucas Paqueta is a physical presence. He's a beast at both ends of the pitch, a box-to-box player. Kevin De Bruyne is not so much of a box-to-box player, not in my eyes, and I'm going to prove that to you right now. So before I do, though, I do want to give the stats of this season, because he's very much going up in his stock value this season, with some impressive numbers he's putting on the board. And numbers aren't really his game entirely, and certainly not in the G&A columns and things like that, but he's doing reasonably well in both those columns as well this season. As you can see, with 15 appearances, 1,276 minutes, 4 goals and assists, 1.5 key passes per game, 1.3 dribbles per game, which is decent, really, really good. Appearances, now into the defensive side of stats, not the appearances. Tackles per game, which is why I wanted to highlight the defensive side of things, because Kevin De Bruyne is not doing these numbers. That's not De Bruyne's game, and it's, if you want to bring him in as De Bruyne's replacement, you're kind of losing what Paqueta offers. If you bring him in purely as an attacking midfielder, he can do that job, but I'd rather see him coming in as an overall midfielder, like a complete versatile midfielder. He can play on the wings. Again, I'm going to prove that to you shortly. 2.6 tackles per game, no errors leading to a goal, basically 1 interceptions per game and nearly 1 clearances per game. Again, not Kevin De Bruyne's sort of part of the pitch. That's not really what he wants to do, Kevin De Bruyne. And here's the heat map for last season. Lucas Paqueta's heat map for last season is pretty versatile, isn't it? Everywhere, in other words. Everywhere. Now, Kevin De Bruyne's heat map for last season, very little involvement in the defensive half, There's very little involvement at all. That's his home. You see that little right-hand side where he loves to cross a ball from there, getting into that sort of middle right quadrant of the pitch, right in the corner of the edge of the area where he whips in those crosses. He a delicious one to Erling Haaland in the Manchester derby at the Etihad 6-3 win last season that you can remember. That's De Bruyne's home. He lives there. He loves it, and that's not really, he doesn't come out of there very much. I think that suits him incredibly well, whereas Lucas Paqueta is everywhere. This season, though, David Moyes has given Lucas Paqueta a very different role to play, which is an interesting side of things to look at, and another indication of his versatility. So as you can see, this season's heat map for Lucas Paqueta, he's playing on the left-hand side of the pitch, and almost defensively, that's almost left wing back, a big chunk of that is in the defensive half of the pitch again. Again, indicating his versatility, his defensive nous, and his ability to protect as much as it is to create. So I don't see him as Kevin De Bruyne's replacement. Or if anything, I see him more of a Bernardo Silva replacement, if anything, purely because of the word versatile. He can do all of the roles that you want from a midfielder. We've seen Bernardo Silva playing a left wing-back role away to Watford. I remember him playing left-back. He's done it before. It was Nottingham Forest, in fact, not Watford, Nottingham Forest. And he's got that same versatility about him. And I like that, and I'm really excited about signing him. Whether we go for him in January, I'm not too sure. But I certainly don't see him as Kevin De Bruyne's replacement. And the fact that if we were to go in for him in January, De Bruyne is back in January. So why would we sign him? And why is another question I want to ask as well. If we were to sign Lucas Paqueta in January, why did we sign Matheus Nunes? Because that's a transfer that's starting to baffle me more and more as these Lucas Paqueta rumours surface and grow, and then they're manifesting into something very, very realistic. It sounds like a very realistic possibility that we could be signing Lucas Paqueta, all depending on the betting allegations. But why sign Matheus Nunes as a sort of stopgap to fill a void temporarily for barely 6 months of a season before we go and get the player that we really wanted in that particular role in January? I don't see Nunes accepting that. I don't see City wasting money on a player for the case of 6 months. City would rather save their money and wait until January if that's the case. Whereas Nunes' involvement, we're yet to really see his role at City. We haven't really found a hole for his peg to go in yet. And where's he live in a Manchester City side right now? He's finding that out. And I mean, City are one of the hardest sides in the world, probably the hardest side in the world to settle into as a player. So many players are given the freedom to have that first season just to bed in, to find their feet. And that's understandably so. Nunes is one of those players. Kovacic is another one of those players. You do have the likes of Doku and Erling Haaland who just hit the ground running. But still, the majority of midfield players come in and need to find their feet. Lucas Paqueta will be the same. The other issue with going for him in January is the fact that the price tag is rumoured to be going up and up and up. And due to his very good involvement in West Ham's season so far, he scored an amazing volley, lovely finished against Olympiacos midweek in the Europa League. He's doing incredible things for West Ham. He's playing really, really well. Another little, it's speculation. Again, it's pure speculation. But that hug, when we went and faced West Ham and beat them, Lucas Paqueta and Pep Guardiola hugged one another. They embraced one another, and there was more to it than just I know who you are, high five, a little hug. It was more to it than that. It was prolonged, wasn't it? There was a little word in the ear from Pep Guardiola of Lucas Paqueta, and I'm not a body language expert or anything like that, but to me that was a case of don't worry about it, we'll get it sorted. So I really felt like that Pep and the club are very much interested in Lucas Paqueta. Whether he's Kevin De Bruyne's replacement, I don't know. Personally, I think Florian Wirtz is more of a suited player for Kevin De Bruyne's role. If you go, I haven't got Florian Wirtz heat map ready for you, but just as an example, I can guarantee you he'll be in the attacking half. He will be in the attacking half. He's much more of an attacking player than Lucas Paqueta is, and he's got that box-to-box nature, Lucas Paqueta. Which is why I think City are looking at him for an overall, maybe part of like a Gundogan long-term replacement, but wasn't that what Nunes was for? Wasn't that what Kovacic was for? So why go for Lucas Paqueta as well? We have to wait and see what Pep's plans are, but the fact that we're signing as many midfielders as we are is a good thing, ultimately. It's just a case of who's going to fit in where and who's going to accept being that role of you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, one game playing, one game on the bench. I don't think Lucas Paqueta wants to be that player. I don't think Nunes wants to be that player or Kovacic. So I think they have to find a certain role in this team and understand their requirements from Pep Guardiola. Now onto the betting allegation side of things as well, and the price tag, which is going to be an issue as well, because rumoured is the 85 million release clause that Lucas Paqueta has won't come into play until summer of 2024. Which means we're going to have to break the bank for him and get closer to 1995, potentially £100 million for him in January, which is an extortionate fee. I think that's way too much. I think 85 million release clause is about on the money, and even then it's still bordering a little bit on the expensive side. Beyond that, it's like we might as well wait. Why pay an extra 15 million for 6 months when De Bruyne is coming back at that time as well? So we are getting a new player effectively in January once Kevin De Bruyne is back. There is obviously concerns about De Bruyne's fitness and how well he can get back into the team. And with a fitness in mind as well, because you don't want to just throw them in. You have to, with a long-term injury like De Bruyne's, you have to slowly bed them in really gently. You don't just throw them in. We found that out with John Stones. I felt like he shouldn't have been playing against young boys. His injuries have been long-term. He was out for 2 or 3 months before he comes back. And I thought the young boys game was a match too far for him. Playing in midweek after playing at the weekend as well, I thought it was too much. And we found out we've been punished. So I don't think you can rush these players, but it is a case of hindsight. The medical team at City are unbelievable. They're not magicians, though. They don't have Mystic Meg prediction balls. They can't predict the future. Unforeseen circumstances happen in the game, and it's unfortunate that John Stones is injured, and the same can be said about Kevin De Bruyne, but he needs wrapping in cotton wool, so maybe that's a reason to go for Paqueta, but not enough for me in January. I'm not convinced that it makes too much sense, but... Then, of course, there's other rumours as well. Calvin Phillips has been linked with a part of the deal in January, which, again, it's like these people who are coming up with these rumours, I feel like they are coming up with them. I don't think they're thinking about it pragmatically. I think they're just pulling it out of their arse, to be blunt with you. Because Calvin Phillips to West Ham, where's he going to play at West Ham? Because no one's thinking, Calvin Phillips at West Ham, he'll slot straight in, no problem. He'll fit right in, will he? Edson Alvarez is doing a pretty good job in defensive midfield, and when they do play a double pivot, they play Thomas Souček or James Ward-Prowse to offer them that creativity. So in defensive midfield, if it's a single pivot, Edson Alvarez ahead of Calvin Phillips all day long. If you have watched Edson Alvarez this season, he's been incredible for West Ham. Double pivot, Thomas Souček, he's in form. James Ward-Prowse, another player in form, takes all the set pieces. He's a threat going the other way from free kicks and corners and things like that. I don't see Calvin Phillips getting into the West Ham team right now. He's that out of form. I don't see it. I just don't see it. So what if you're Calvin Phillips? What do you want to do? Do you want to sit on the bench at Manchester City, or do you want to sit on the bench at West Ham? I know which bench I'd rather sit on, the one that collects trophies season in, season out. I don't see why the move to West Ham, he needs some sort of guarantees to get some sort of playing time, a promise of some kind. And I feel like Calvin Phillips needs that before going. And the people that are coming up with these rumours are not thinking about these things. They're not looking further ahead. They're just pulling out for the sake of clicks and articles. And that's not what I want to do on this channel. That's not what I want to do. I want to be as honest and as upfront with you guys as possible with the potential realistic possibilities for the sake of it. And the idea that Kevin De Bruyne's replacement, again, I like to think I've addressed that. Now, time to put my tinfoil hat on and talk about the betting allegations, because there's something odd about them. There really is. The first of all, the betting allegations, for those who don't know, it all comes down to a yellow card that he got against Aston Villa last season. The betting company, the one and only source that's accusing Lucas Paqueta, first of all, of these betting situations is Betway. And that one source traced these bets back to the Paqueta Island, which is where Lucas Paqueta comes from, hence the name. They've named him after his island that he comes from in Brazil. But it's come to his family, apparently. One of the family members placed a suspicious amount of money on Lucas Paqueta to receive a yellow card in that game. Now, Lucas Paqueta is protesting his innocence, relentlessly protesting. He has not once suggested that he's even had interviews with the FA. We're not privy to the outcome of those interviews, but there's strong suggestions now circulating that he's going to be cleared in this situation. And if he is cleared, it's like, well, why was he accused in the first place? Well, Betway are West Ham's main sponsorship. Their main sponsorship. And Betway don't want to see their best players leave West Ham. And no one's asking the question, what happens if the allegations aren't true? What's the ramifications for the people who pointed the finger? And where does it stop? Because betting companies that are sponsoring other clubs could do this. We don't want to see our best players go. And let's say, no, we've seen some suspicious betting activity that will halt and put a stop to any potential outgoing transfer of that player, because now we've got to investigate them. You look at Tonali, you look at even Tony as well. Those two held their hands up and said, guilty, sorry. Now, whether they did that to soften the blow, soften the punishment, or did they do that because they knew they were about to be caught and they might as well just get this over and done with and hold their hands up? Well, Lucas Paqueta said, I didn't do anything wrong. And then how do you prove that he did something wrong? How do you prove that a betting was suspicious? How do you prove that he tipped them off, his family members, and said, I'm going to get a yellow card against Aston Villa. You put money on, I'm going to kick the shit out of somebody and get a very dodgy yellow card, and we're going to all laughing straight to the bank, aren't we? As a family member you are anyway. Well, how do you prove that? How far can they go? What is the jurisdiction that these betting companies have now to prove these accusations? Are they going to go start investigating text messages, emails, phone calls? Oh, who the fuck do they think they are? The FBI tapping into information that they're not privy to. How do they prove this? It seems like a big, massive waste of time to me right now. And certainly if he's cleared, questions want to be asked the other way now. Why did you accuse him? Where's the proof? You know, one yellow card. You know, we need to see a pattern of events, not one yellow card. There's something odd about it. There's something odd about it. That's me with my tinfoil hat on. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do like to ask questions. I don't just read what I get and take it as face value. I ask questions that I like to think most people aren't asking. And no one's asking that question. So why? Why is no one asking these questions? Because it's odd. Something's off about this. It really is. But Blues, would you take Lucas Paqueta in January? How much would you spend in January? Would you be happy with Calvin Phillips going the other way? Would you go for Lucas Paqueta in summer? And is he Kevin De Bruyne's replacement? For me, no. Is he anyone's replacement? Is he a totally blank canvas that is a fresh face being brought into the Manchester City squad that's going to be utilised in Pep Guardiola's very specific way that he has in mind for that particular player? That's more likely than any other type of replacement. I do think, is this person's replacement? Is Kevin De Bruyne's replacement? To me, that's lazy journalism. I don't think that's the case at all. But, Blues, what do you think? I really want to hear. Get your comments in below, like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is typical City now, holding up Silver.